Thank you very much. The paper was on the continental free trade area and the structural transformation in Africa, exploring Afro-Canadian partnership. And I'm motivated to write the paper because of the need for structural transformation of the African economy. Over the past 50 years or more, the African economy has been essentially driven by commodity export, dependence on solid mineral and commodity export, which limited the growth development potential of the continent. Even though there are variation in what occur, that some countries have the big capacity on export of services, but the general outlook of African economy is lack of structural transformation. So I'm motivated to write this paper in the context of the ongoing negotiation of the continental free trade area, in which structural transformation was part of the key objective, that Africa need to move away from commodity dependence and export to value adding production and diversification of the economy. And that in doing that, a lot of challenges confront the continent: infrastructural challenges, supply side constraints, and Canada has just started what they call the progressive trade policy agenda. And I try to locate the need to meet the various challenges of within that context of progressive trade agenda. Canada can actually increase their trade and investment with Africa in a win-win situation that will help Africa. I don't like to use the word help. That can facilitate building the supply side constraint in terms of infrastructure, skill development, human capital development. Building capacity for harmonization of policies across the continent. That if this is done, Canada can explore the market in Africa, the big market of 1.1 billion people, and then Africa can also export to China, and then there can be closer relationship. Beyond that, I added that in view of the retreating multilateral trading system, multilateral order, which has subsisted since 1945 after the Second World War. There's a rise of populist regime in the US, in Britain, that are saying make America great again. That Africa and China can actually leverage on their partnership to reorder, the international liberal regime to bring about inclusive and sustainable development. In the short time, the Canadian progressive trade policy agenda should not just be limited to the protection of Canadian interests. It should have a global outlook, in which case the needs of a continent like Africa will also be factored in, especially in terms of capacity development, infrastructure development. And again, like I did mention in my paper, I will bring the aspect of China, that the way China is investing in Africa is different from the usual African relation with the West, especially EU and the United States of America. They are building infrastructure. Okay, and the infrastructure is critically there's what we call Cape to Cairo rail project that is going on now, that China is involved in building rail across the continent. So that is very critical, that Canada should deliberately extrapolate the progressive trade agenda to Africa in a way that will bring about win-win, because the threat to the global, the open trade or open international system is informed by the fear that the middle class is more or less getting extinct, that the only 1% is getting all the resources or the benefit of globalization. But like the trade minister said, the Canadian trade minister, that we want to carry everybody along. So this should also involve countries, less developed countries that are found in Africa. Do it deliberately. And in doing that, like I mentioned in my paper, Canada can actually be the new leader of the free world.